What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about my first day experience on the PTR and my overall feelings about it, and we're going to be going over the Druid, because if you didn't know, I play the Druid, and I had a pretty decent stream last night that ended in a crash, but I did do some testing afterward, and we do have some things to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So far, currently, I feel pretty underwhelmed with the PTR. Now, there are several bugs that the devs already know about, so those are going to be addressed. But I think my biggest issue is, given the fact that these PTRs only last a week, I don't see why we are spending a large portion of our time running around farming the same exact content just so we can get the brand new unique items or to test out the brand new in-game content, when that is what our primary focus should be on. There's no reason that I should be needing to farm up in-game bosses that we've already experienced or grind out nightmare dungeons and hell tides just to obtain a compass to do the infernal horde mode, or to possibly get lucky and get a unique item that I would love to test out on one of the builds I plan on trying. Also, something else that's worth mentioning is the fact that our temperings are completely blank, and even when we make a brand new character, we only get a select few of temperings to actually unlock, meaning that we have to again spend all that time farming up our temperings just so that way we can temper the affixes we want on our gear pieces. And I think another issue is that, much like on the first PTR, after I get a few tempering recipes, it seems like the drop rate for the temperings just plummets down to zero, and it feels like I have to get incredibly lucky just to get something as basic as a tempering recipe for my character. Now, my hope is that maybe with future PTRs at some point they'll just give us unlimited resources as well as bossing materials, so we can basically do all the crafting and content we want, and that also they'll possibly implement some kind of merchant we can go to that will give us full access to the complete list of uber uniques and uniques that are going to be in the game. Because given the fact that we have such a short amount of time to test everything, it would be really nice just to be able to go to a merchant, obtain the items we want for our build, and just go ahead and put them on our character, do a few temperings, maybe some masterworking, and jump right into the action so we can test everything out. Now let's talk about the Druid, and much like my overall experience with the PTR so far, I'm very underwhelmed with how the Druid is performing. And honestly, that doesn't really surprise me from looking at the PTR patch notes. Now, I will say that the Druid is going to be receiving an overall damage buff with some of the unique items that they're incorporating into the game. However, I don't think it's anywhere near what's required to be competitive in a meta where a class like the Barbarian currently exists. Now, I have done some testing with Shred, Pulverize, Landslide, Windshear, and a Companions build, and even though Poison Creeper currently is bugged, it's pretty easy to see that the Companion setups will be incredibly powerful when compared to all of the other builds with the class, given the fact that Shepherds is now giving that big multiplicative damage bonus to our Companion skills. And one build that did seem to really stand out in my opinion was Pulverize. It seems like Pulverize hasn't really received that much of a damage loss. In fact, I think just because of the way you build Pulverize, you're actually seeing a bigger damage increase than a loss, and when you incorporate some of the unique items I'm about to talk about, it definitely sends Pulverize up a few notches. However, unfortunately, even though Shred has definitely seen a bump up in terms of its overall damage output, it's definitely still suffering from many of the same problems that it currently does on the live server. Now, as you can see here in the video, I am using a Lightning Storm setup, and yes, attack speed definitely scales with our Lightning Storm. And in fact, I think it's one of the better buffs to the Druid class overall. But now let's talk about a unique combination that feels pretty much like the Shepherds aspect did, where you're pretty much going to want to implement this into as many builds as possible just because of how powerful it is. And that is the combination of Lochran's Talisman as well as the Bjorn Fang's Tusks Gauntlets. So this is something I theory crafted pretty early on, and it's pretty easy to see why. So Bjorn's Fang's Tusk Gauntlets, and we're just going to call them the Cataclysm Gauntlets from now on because I don't want to say that over and over again, give you a massive multiplicative damage bonus of up to 100% while you have Cataclysm active. And not only that, but while you have Cataclysm active, it also gives you unlimited resources. So then when you pair this with the Lochran's Talisman, it is incredibly powerful. So what you get from the Talisman is up to a 50% crit chance, as well as every point over 100 primary resources, you get a 1% increase to your critical strike damage bucket. Not only that, but the affixes on the talisman are incredibly powerful. You get a huge roll of critical strike damage, as well as attack speed, maximum resource, which can just be considered even more critical strike damage, and then a pretty hefty roll of all stats. So basically, these two unique items synergize incredibly well. So basically what you're going to try to do is get an infinite uptime on your Cataclysm. And what this is going to do when combined with a talisman is give you infinite resources, a 100x multiplier, 50% guaranteed crit chance, and a metric ton of critical strike damage. And that is why I say this is pretty much a replacement for the Shepherd's aspect, because all of that value you get from just those two items is pretty much impossible to pass up. I mean, you're going to want to even run these on a Lightning Storm build. Even though you typically run ascetic wraps with your Lightning Storm setups, you really cannot pass up on a 100x multiplier. Oh, and also, before I forget to mention, you can also use Doombringer on Druid now, and I actually have that on this Lightning Storm setup that you see me using here on the World Boss. Also, something else I do really want to test out is builds utilizing the Shard of Verithil. It is a brand new unique item coming to the game that gives us a monster amount of basic skill damage at the cost of only 25 primary resources. It also gives us another roll of basic attack speed, which is going to further increase our attack speed with our basic skill builds. And I did want to go ahead and mention that even though this adds the primary resource cost with this unique item, you can pretty much do away with that resource cost when using the Cataclysm gloves, because again, if you can keep a 100% uptime on your Cataclysm, you will always have infinite resources, basically meaning that you will just get a free 300% multiplicative damage bonus to your basic skills. So for those of you out there who are a bit worried about basic skill builds, I don't think that Stormclaw will be as powerful as this, but if you want to run a Windshear build, I think this is actually going to be even more powerful than the current Windshear builds when you have it set up correctly. And this also opens up opportunity to have a pretty powerful Earth Spike build, or even just something as basic as Claw or Maul. Now, like I said, unfortunately, I do not have that unique item, and I am trying to farm it up, but that's part of the problem with the PTRs, is that I have to rely on RNG just to test out a build so I can give the developers feedback as to whether or not something actually needs to be buffed or not. But anyways, guys, that is my overall experience so far, and I do think it's going to get better once they fix some of these bugs that currently exist. And I just want to remind you guys just to go ahead and try out these Cataclysm gloves mixed in with the Lochran's Talisman. And if you do get luckier than me and you do get a Shard of Verithil quite early on, go ahead and throw that bad boy onto a basic skill build and equip your Cataclysm gauntlets. And remember, the objective here is to just get a 100% uptime to Cataclysm. So cooldown affixes, Endless Tempest ranks, and the Cataclysm cooldown tempering would be phenomenal for any build utilizing those gloves. And let's see what kind of damage we can actually create with these synergies. But that's really it for the video, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. And also, if you've had a chance to test a PTR, or you've just been watching your favorite streamer test everything out, go ahead and leave your experiences down in the comments section. I'd love to read about them and see if there's anything in there that might intrigue me, that might lead me down a path of discovery for the Druid class. But as always, I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night, depending on wherever you're from, and peace out, guys. I will see you in the next one.